my library is very vast. Not only my home library, but also the bookshelves in my office on campus are filled with books. You have an opportunity in this Communication 120 class to choose a book you want to read for this semester. There is not a required textbook for this class. There's a recommended one, and then there's a list of books from which you can choose what you want to read. So I'm going to go through several of those books, actually all of those books for you. So the primary book, the textbook for this class, is Communicating at Work, Strategies for Success in Business and the Professions, 12th edition. So when you look at the class schedule and you see the chapters, it is from this book that the chapters are being taken. So this is the official textbook of this class. You can buy this one, but you are not required to buy this one. So you can choose something else. You could instead take a previous edition of the same book. It's the 11th edition. So you're more than welcome instead to read Communicating at Work, Strategies for Success in Business and the Professions, 11th edition. One of the options in this class are beyond textbooks. You don't have to read a textbook. You can read what's called in publishing a trade book. So a trade book is the kind of book that is presented to the consumer. It's something that you would be buying at some place like Barnes & Noble, right? It'd be a bookstore where you're getting this. So one of those books is Pre-suasion, A Revolutionary Way to Influence and Persuade. So this particular book looks at persuasion, like what separates someone who can persuade from like someone who can excellently persuade. If you are interested in that, that's great. That's the one that you can read. So some of the books are not with me in my home office, in my home library, but they're on campus. And one of those is Managing Business and Professional Communication. So I have a photo of that. So it is this. It looks like this. Managing Business and Professional Communication is another option for you if you'd like to instead read that textbook. This one, which is called Tools of Titans, don't be intimidated by like its enormous size of this book. This is not, it's actually separated into different sections. So like if you have an interest in sports, if you have an interest in art, whatever that, whatever it is, this book is actually a series of interviews and what certain people in those particular areas and others found that has made them successful. How have they grown in whatever it is that they're doing? So it's very manageable, and some people would call it like a fun read. So Communicating for Results, A Guide for Business and the Profession, 6th edition. You can get that one. This is in my campus library. There's a photo of it. So fiction is also an opportunity. So in publishing, there is something called advanced review copies, which are basically free books. But they are the kind of, they sometimes don't even have the same cover that eventually you're going to see in a bookstore or something. And sometimes there's spaces in the books that will say this is where the graphic is going to go, like a photo or something like that. So I have a lot of those. I have a lot of what are called advanced review copies. So I've been able to read a lot of books before they're even available to the public. So one of them that I read is The Warehouse. So The Warehouse is fiction, and The Warehouse is about, it's kind of post-apocalyptic, but at the same time, it's about a huge corporation that has multiple jobs, and you go to that corporation and you live and you work there. Obviously, all the books for this class have something to do with communication or businesses or professions, right? So another book, not fiction, this is nonfiction. Dan Lyons wrote Disrupted: My Adventures in the Startup Bubble. So this is actually a Tucson Festival of Books author who presented I had a conversation with this person, and we talked about the books and other things. And so this particular book is about how he was laid off from his job and then went to go work for a tech startup, and it was not what he was expecting. So that's examination of that. That then inspired his second book, which is called Lab Rats, How Silicon Valley Made Work Miserable for the Rest of Us. So it's a look at how the procedures and policies and the way that they work in tech industries out of Silicon Valley and then out of other areas now have changed the way that we actually work in non-tech industries or in non-Silicon Valley places, right? So another book you can choose is Strategic Communication in Business and the Professions. Looks like this picture you're seeing here. So that's an option for you. This is, again, a photo of a book in my campus office. Yet there's even more. So Business and Professional Communication, Keys for Workplace Excellence, Quintanilla. There's this book, this photo. So the next one was like a massive seller. It's Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, Women Work, and the Will to Lead. So their experiences, her experiences in the workplace, and then how those experiences have shaped the way that they lead. So this one's an interesting one because this is not a class where we're talking exactly about news media, but there's so much from Confessions of an Investigative Reporter that looks at business and workplaces. So Matthew Schwartz is actually a Tucson resident and wrote this particular book. We're colleagues from my work in television. So this one, I used to bring this to the physical classroom, and people would pore over this book. So it's called Do What You Are, Discover the Perfect Career for You Through the Secrets of Personality Types. You can find this book. I actually bought this at Bookman's, I think. Yeah, I did. If you've heard of Myers-Briggs, it examines jobs and professions using that particular, I'll call it a matrix, that platform. So this is another option. So for those of you who are artistically inclined or musicians, there was a book published in 2016 called Culture Crash, The Killing of the Creative Class. So it's how things have changed for those who are creatives. Several years ago, it used to be jobs and professions where you could actually get a little bit of work out of it, meaning you could earn some money out of it, but it's become more and more difficult. But some really great examples. So another nonfiction, but a trade book, an advanced review copy, is called Uncanny Valley. It was published actually in 2020. It's a memoir, Silicon Valley. It's a very hot topic because it's formed so much, it's changed so much in the way that we work and actually in the way that we communicate, really. So Uncanny Valley memoir is a story of a person who's not a tech person, but takes a job within that particular industry, within Silicon Valley, and discusses what they see and what they didn't see. You have a huge list. So this slide you're looking at now is just a repeat of the previous slides. These are not more books. We ended at this one in Uncanny Valley. So I've shared with you pictures, I've showed you the physical copies. You can actually also go into the syllabus and look at the list of books there. So choose one of these books for our Communication 120 class. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to talk to you more. Thanks again.